Hi, this is Hank reporting from Kyiv, and this is my update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's see what happened around Ukraine in the last 24 hours. Good news number 1. $100 million radar. Good news number 2. Military airfield. Switchblade drones production. Top Gun Timofiy. Luxembourg joins the party. First ever NATO standard gun. $6 million dirty money. Forecast from the enemy. I'll start with the good news. The Ukrainian army destroyed a very rare and expensive radar station complex Nebo-M. The cost of this object is estimated at as much as $100 million, and Russia has only 10 such complexes. During operation, it scans the horizon and identifies air objects, which will then be shot down by the air defense. I'm not a military expert, so I do not know how the principle how this complex works, but the general stuff says that this system works in stealth mode and it is very difficult to detect. I bet that the Russians are trying to hide the $100 million complex as well. The destruction of this object creates a window for our ballistic missiles. At the moment, we have French Scalp and British Storm Shadow missiles, which can be used in area where Russians lost the radar. The location, of course, is not disclosed, but in any case, this is good news. Ukrainian defense forces attacked and apparently successfully the Borisoglebsk military airfield in the Voronezh region. I didn't really understand the geography of the Russian province, so I looked at the maps to find this location. From here, Russian Su-34 bombers take off, which launch aero bombs at the border regions of Ukraine. Here on the map, you can see the location of the city of Sumy to the left and Kharkiv to the right. This is exactly what we are now struggling with. We can only get these planes with drones, and I believe that this is a very difficult task. Oh, if only Mr. Atacams got permission. Okay, maybe we will soon hear about the use of a new Ukrainian ballistic missile that they talk about. This is a video of the airfield in Borisoglebsk. Such videos are always difficult to understand because they are filmed by eyewitnesses, ordinary people, and as a rule, nothing is clear. I see that something is burning massively. It's difficult to determine the location, so I'm passing on this information as is. It said that the warehouses with air bombs, aviation fuel and aircraft errors were hit. This is a photo from NASA that shows the airfield from a satellite and the burning areas are marked. The most intensive fire is in red. Most likely this is the warehouse and the runway is on the right. I wonder what burned there. I really want the Russians to lose all the ability to attack Kharkiv and Sumy with bombs. Perhaps we will learn more details in a few days. In general, the problem of air bombs is probably the biggest right now. They have air superiority and we are not playing on equal terms. It's very difficult to win a battle in defense. Interesting news. American company AeroVironment starts production of Switchblade 600 attack drones in Ukraine. It is said that the permission from the US government will also be required for this, but in any case, the step has been taken. Why is this interesting? I first heard that the states were giving us the Switchblades in 2022. At that time, there was no such usage of FPVs and this was something new. After that, I literally heard in the news only a few times about the use of Switchblades, but it did not cause any resonance. But the fact that the Ukrainians taped an anti-tank landmine to homemade drones and began to burn out whole Russian tank columns, oh yeah, that did cause a resonance. It seemed to me that Switchblades simply did not take root then, and everyone forgot about them. But no, as you can see, the process is going on in parallel. Perhaps the information just does not get out. My opinion, not as a military expert, but as someone who spends almost 1,000 days without a day off studying what is happening here, is that Switchblade manufacturers need a testing ground. There is no better testing ground for weapons manufacturers than active war. Let's test new weapons. We don't mind if it allows us to take back our lands and win the war. Meet Timofiy Orel. He is 25 years old and has received the Hero of Ukraine and Gold Star awards. According to the author of Battles on Beers, Nick Lade, this guy has such an impressive number of destroyed enemies. Check it out. 434 soldiers irretrievably, 346 wounded, plus 134 destroyed units of heavy armored vehicles, including 42 tanks, and almost all these targets have video confirmation. These guys worth millions of dollars. As you can imagine, such a specialist will be very useful for Switchblade's manufacturers. Just imagine how unique experience Ukrainian drone operators have today. It's like the first shooters who started using gunpowder in war centuries ago. Continuing with the drone theme, Luxembourg just joined the drone coalition and is already country number 17 on this list. As our Deputy Minister of Defense for Digitalization, Katerina Chernohorenko, says, our goal is to ensure industrial production of FPV drones in Ukraine and the West in order to create an asymmetric technological advantage over the enemy in the long term, and also to scale up the production. Therefore, we are pleased to welcome Luxembourg to the coalition, which will help jointly develop the industry. This is also good news. The bad news is that Russians still have enough resources and can produce drones at the same level as 17 countries. And due to the fact that the dictator does not need to ask anyone's permission, they make some steps much faster than we do while we coordinate and negotiate with all parties. Unfortunately, good guys make bold decisions quickly only in the movies. In life, good guys are limited by various laws, polar opinions of politicians, and endless bureaucracy. I really like this wording that I came up with, but it's so sad actually. It seems we have accumulated news about the production of new weapons. This time it's brief and it's not news about the drones. For the first time they showed, moreover, for the first time they mentioned at all, the new artillery unit Bogdana-B with a caliber of 155mm. This is a towed cannon according to the NATO standard, which Ukraine developed and produces. We already have Bogdana, which drives itself, and according to the president, we produce from 15 to 20 pieces per month, which is quite a lot if you see how partner countries transferred for us, for example, only 10 such systems per year. We are grateful, of course, but this is not enough against the Russian military machine. The fact that we have begun to develop our own military-industrial complex is wonderful. I cannot imagine how big a challenge it is to quickly build, test, and produce new large weapons in conditions of super secrecy. This photo has already become a meme. As they say, the joke is funny, but the situation is terrible. In the photo you see the son of the head of the Medical Social Expert Commission during a search of their home. The State Bureau of Investigation found more than $6 million in dirty cash, expensive jewelry from Rolex and Cartier, and expensive real estate abroad. And you know what's the funniest? They had lists and data of all the people who gave them these bribes and a list of forged documents that they received. During the search, these people threw 2 bags with $500,000 out of the window. Here they are lying near the house. The investigation continues. The investigators are probably tired of counting all these bills. The essence of the crime is that this woman and her son had power over the commission that could issue the disability status to people and thus help them avoid military service with forged documents. At the same time, this very service deals with wounded soldiers, and many of my friends constantly complain about the fact that they cannot properly register their combat wounds. The same applies to those who have a disability due to health, the real illness. I am disgusted to see this. Can this crime be considered corruption? Definitely yes. Did they steal money from other people? No, but this is a criminal scheme that harmed the country in the sense of that physically healthy men bought their way out of service. I have not encountered this service because I do not have a disability, but when I went through a medical commission, it took such a huge amount of time and money just to get certificates about my illnesses. Long story short, I have 14 points, including a tumor of the spine and a torn shoulder muscle. We definitely need to reform the healthcare system, and I'm afraid to imagine how to do it during a war so as not to disrupt all the processes. But the fact that such investigations are underway and these people will be held accountable is a good sign. Oh, I hope so. Immediately after, news appeared that employees of this organization in the Kharkiv region had already found themselves in a similar situation. Here they are standing with sad faces during a search. Damn it, I hate this desire of people to solve problems instead of acting according to the law. This is the bad side of Ukraine, local corruption. I will not say that this is exclusively our feature. You can find something similar more or less everywhere in the world. There are people who want to get some certificate or buy a driving license or buy a grey market iPhone cheaper, and this is bad. Can I say that all Ukrainians are like this? Definitely not, but some people live like this. That's why I'm happy when they get arrested, and I really believe that the war will help transform the society for the better. Ukrainian nationalists often say, we will either change or perish. It's a bit philosophical, existential question. There is such a person, Igor Girkin, aka Strelkov, a former employee of the Russian FSB, a terrorist, one of the ideologists and leaders of the separatist movement that invaded Donbass. He led armed criminals who began seize power in Ukraine in 2014. For shooting down the civilian Boeing MH17, he was put on the international wanted list by the Netherlands. 298 people died then. This is a short description. There is a long list of his crimes. I would like to talk about this person because he is now kept in a Russian prison for criticizing Putin. One of the terrorists insulted another terrorist, and he is now serving for years. How ironic, right? Sometimes he passes information through his people and it is published for his fans online. It is interesting that he is extremely pessimistic about Russian reality. Apparently, he would like to see the same greatness and huge military victories, but in fact he is very upset when he sees the incompetence of the Russian army. I will say this, in Ukraine he has long been a meme despite his monstrous crimes. We often mention him when we need to describe some heavy pessimism. He has literally become a symbol of pessimism here. I will give you a few interesting statements. This gives us some understanding of what is going on in the heads of Russian military personnel who do not support Putin, and there are many of them, by the way. First, the needs of war significantly exceeds Russian capabilities. Their military-industrial complex cannot cope, and the weapons reserves are almost completely depleted. This can be compared with what our intelligence says. In short, Russia's capabilities are not endless. Soviet weapons are not endless. We already have two similar points of view from the most opposite sources. This gives me hope. I want to believe that Ukraine and the entire civilized world will be able to gain the upper hand over terrorists. We are developing our military-industrial complex with great difficulty, but still, take at least today's news. Europe is developing the production of shells for us, and I hope they will cope better than the North Korea. This is a ray of hope, and this is a rational description. Fingers crossed. Second, human resources are also exhausted. No matter how it sounds, but Russia with its 100 or 140 million population also has its limitations. In 2.5 years of war, all professional troops were destroyed or wounded. It is impossible to endlessly advance and lose soldiers and never reach a critical point. The fact that there are many of them does not mean that they are endless. Just like equipment. This also affects their economy. It is impossible to mobilize a third of all workers to war, transfer another third of all workers to manufacturing of bullets, and for the rest to move the economy on a huge country with tripled force. This is simply mathematically impossible. Fingers crossed, even harder. Next, the wretchedness of strategic and tactical planning led to a complete impasse, loss of initiative, and the state of amoebic reaction to irritants. I'm not a military person, but I understand that all these media assaults do not raise the morale of the troops. The fact that the Russians are capturing small towns from which only ashes remain is a limited tactical success. They have been scaring London and Washington for decades, but in fact they are stuck in villages on the border of Kharkiv region. Yeah, they still kill a lot of people here and move forward, but it is far from a so-called second army in the world. Next, the general systemic military-political crisis will soon turn into a military-economic one. Perhaps following the example of 1917, it will be superimposed on the growing fatigue of the population from census and unclear in terms of goals, war. Girkin sees the next year as critical if nothing changes for the better for them. In general, this is a logical situation. For more than 30 months they have been fighting without clear goals because no one has yet described the goals of the war. Initially, they wanted to seize all of Ukraine, then 5 regions. Now they probably want at least hold on to what they have and do not understand at all what to do with Kursk. The only thing I want is for us to survive. I see what chaos is happening in Russia, and if we can be more organized, better manage our limited resources and find a common language with our partners. After all, we are now surviving on their money, then we have a chance. I believe in this. The main thing that should always be remembered is if Russians get tired of fighting and simply go back home, the war will end. But if Ukrainians get tired of fighting and surrender, the war will continue in the neighboring countries. Today's news about arrests and 6 million dirty money is certainly something. I'm outraged by this, as are all my friends. My entire news line is simply filled with indignation, and we want to see justice so that these people are convicted and all their money is handed over to the army under public supervision. Otherwise, the process is going on as usual. It is strange to say that we are accustomed to war, but it is so. Missiles are flying, drones are flying, the front is crawling forward. We are collecting money for the military and the victims. I'm grateful to everyone who continues to support us. As you can see, we are fighting on the external front against the occupiers and on the internal front against local enemies. Sometimes it seems to me that it cannot be any other way, but as they say, the darkest night is before the dawn. Let this be a philosophical ending to this video. If you want to support this channel, all the links are below, and I recently added the subscription option on Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. This was my update on the Russian-Ukrainian war for day number 954. Take care, and I hope to see you tomorrow.